Julie, thank you very much. The Supreme Court will hear arguments for a second day today challenging the president's health care reform law. The High Court is being watched carefully not only by the health care industry and everyday citizens on both sides of the issue, but by both major political parties. They have a lot at stake as well, and what the justices decide could have a big impact on the upcoming elections. Joining us now is the editor-in-chief of Roll Call, Scott Montgomery. Good to have you back here.
Good morning.
Good morning. Let's talk about yesterday, day one. Sure. As the arguments began and questions were asked by some of the justices and the like. What did you take away from the first day of the proceedings?
The first day of the proceedings sort of ended up being a bit of a throat-clearing exercise, I think, for everybody, in that, the big question was going to be whether or not the court would punt on this issue before the election and use this 1867 law and say, well, until somebody has actually been forced to pay for not following the mandate to get health care, you can't actually debate the issue of constitutionality. And the court seemed really not interested in using that out. A lot of people had made sort of the point that if they were going to use that out, they would have not scheduled 3 days of hearings.
Right.
So now I think we get past that and look to sort of the heart of the matter starting today.
We know that the scheduling of the 3 days of hearings is extraordinary.
Right.
Does that in and of itself, the scheduling of the hearings, the fact that they are going to deal with this now, does that in and of itself suggest anything about where the court may go with this?
No, but I think it does suggest that the court recognizes the political sort of public policy nature of this issue. I mean, it is extraordinary that they scheduled all of these days. It also is, although they continue to not have cameras in the courtroom, they released audio, they released transcripts. This is something that the court typically does not do. They recognize that this is a highly political, highly charged public policy debate, and they are taking sort of extraordinary steps to show a public face on debating this issue.
And what and kind of allow people to to see what the process is.
See the process and feel like they're part of it.
Right. Okay. What do we expect to happen today?
So today we get to the debate, the discussion over the individual mandate, whether or not this is constitutional. Everyone, as they often do, is going to be listening for questions from the justices, and whether or not those questions suggest something about where the court might go in its ruling, which will come in June. But traditionally, those questions often do not actually do very well in telling us what might happen later.
Yeah, it is interesting because people, we heard it starting yesterday afternoon, the guessing game, trying to decipher where they're going, all that kind of stuff. And it's impossible to do that.
It is impossible to do that.
It seems to me the crux of the matter here is whether or not the penalties that people may need to pay if they don't buy insurance, whether that constitutes a tax.
Right. Well, that is certainly the fundamental question for yesterday's issue of whether or not you can use this law from before to say, well, you can't really debate this issue right now until somebody's been forced to pay. Going forward now, today and then tomorrow, too, we get to this really highly political question of whether or not Congress had the authority in the Commerce Clause of the Constitution to essentially require people to buy a product from a private company.
The political implications of this could be significant, although it seems to me that the person with the most to lose is the president. If the court comes down and says this is not constitutional, you can't do this, that provides a lot of fodder for anyone going up against him in the election.
Well, truthfully, I think that none of this is good for the president, in the sense that whether the court decides in June to either uphold the law or repeal part of it, I just don't think that it's good for the president, in that either way it creates a story of uncertainty that does not help a sitting president. If the court were to rule, for instance, yes, okay, let's go forward with the law, it's constitutional, yes, that's a short-term win for the president, but then you get into this whole discussion, and you'll hear it certainly from Republicans and from outside groups favoring Republicans. Well, now what happens next? We don't know if the law is actually going to work. Is it going to lower costs the way it's supposed to? And all of that kind of uncertainty, is it going to make, one of the arguments that gets made is it's going to force businesses to give up employees. They're going to have to shed jobs in order to pay for this. That kind of uncertainty does not help a sitting president.
Very good point. All right, we're glad you came in, Scott Montgomery,
Thanks for
editor-in-chief
having
of the Roll Call. We appreciate it. We'll see you again, too.